According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average tenure today in a position is about 4.2 years. If you're over the age of 45, it's closer to 7. I think here in Silicon Valley, where I live, is probably closer to 2 because of all of the high-tech firms and what seems to be continuous layoffs every week with one or another. But the bottom line is this: whether it's 7 years or 4.2 or 2 years, we don't interview that often. And so it's completely natural to feel a little anxious when it comes to the interview. Well, how do you increase your confidence? Well, people are going to tell you the best way to increase it is through practice, preparation. But you may be asking, well, how do I prepare for an interview when I have no idea as to what kind of questions I'm going to be asked? Well, if you think about it, you do know a little bit. You could probably guess what kind of questions you got to prepare for. Questions like, well, tell me a little bit about yourself, or what happened with your last job, or, of course, the dreaded salary question. What do you think your biggest weakness is? What do you think your biggest strength is? I mean, if you really kind of sit down and put your mind to it, you can have a general idea as to what questions you're likely going to be asked. And by the way, if you subscribe to this video, and I hope you have already, I have a number of videos on all of these different types of questions that I record and upload every Tuesday, career tips and strategies. But I don't want to talk about those kind of questions today. What I want to talk about with you today are your stories. So I'm going to tell you a little secret, and it's a secret, so don't go telling this to anybody, especially any career coaches out there, career counselors, because it's their secret. You see, we all have a little trick that we call STAR stories or SOAR stories. And let me explain how this works. What I want you to do is I want you to think back over your career for the last couple of years. What are some of the significant things that come to mind? I mean, what were these issues, these items, these stories that come to mind when you think about what has happened over the last couple of years? And I know each and every one of you watching will be able to come up with several stories, several what I would call big issues that just come front and center. What was the situation of that story? In 1 or 2 bullet points, I want you to put down what was the situation. Describe it for me in just 1 or 2 bullet points. And then what I would like you to do, I would like you to tell me in another 1 or 2 bullet points, what was the task that you were responsible for in this situation, or what was the obstacle that you faced in this situation? 1 or 2 bullet points. Then in another 1 or 2 bullet points, I want you to let me know the action that you took to resolve this, or the action that you were forced to take. And then finally, in another 1 or 2 bullet points, I want you to tell me what were the results that came about. So if you can envision this in your mind, you have 4 bullet points. And with each bullet point, you have 1 or 2 sentences. So you're going to have a story here, the outline of a story that is simply going to be 4 elements: the situation, the obstacle or the task you were responsible for, the obstacle that you faced, one or the other, the action that you took, and the actual result that came about that. I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but when we spell out situation, task, action, result, first letters spell out STAR, or situation, the obstacle, the action, the result, first letters spell out SOAR. You're going to create some SOAR stories or some STAR stories. And again, this is a secret, so don't go telling anybody this. This is a secret that us, career coaches and advisors and counselors that we have. But I can pretty much assure you that whether you're working with a career coach in Toronto, Canada, or Los Angeles, California, or Santa Fe, New Mexico, or wherever, you're going to hear these because it's pretty common in the industry. But this is how you prepare for some of those behavioral type of interview questions. Now, another way to do this, which I think is just as effective, if not more, is to take your resume and go through the bullet points of each one of the positions that you held. The bullet point that's addressed on the resume, I want you to think about a situation that occurred surrounding that bullet point, that accomplishment, a specific situation, the task or an obstacle that you faced, the action that you took, and what was the result. Because I pretty much guarantee every single bullet point on your resume is going to have a story, if not multiple stories around it. And this is the beauty of creating SOAR stories and STAR stories. One story could actually answer a multitude of different questions that could come your way. But by going bullet point by bullet point by bullet point on your resume, well, one thing that you're doing is if the hiring manager is looking at your resume and says, I see that you are responsible for a $250,000 budget. I see that you collaborated with this team. I see yada, yada, yada. You're going to have a story behind that. And you can come back and say, yes, for example, and then cite the situation, cite the obstacle or task that you had, cite the action that you took, and cite what the results were. You know, I've talked to a number of clients who have experienced the same thing. They will write 15 to 20 SOAR or STAR stories, which really will cover probably 60, if not more, different kinds of behavioral type of questions. But when they've been hit with a question in an interview that they don't have a SOAR or STAR story for, they've all told me, you know, Bill, I really felt comfortable coming up with one right on the fly. And that's what happens when you practice this technique. So go through, think about some of the questions that you're going to be asked, you know, salary questions. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What happened at your last job? The weakness question, you know, what do you think your strengths are? Check out my links below. I have one link in the notes section, the top 5 interview questions that any hiring manager really wants to know about you and best practice answers. But make your stories. Make your stories up. Study them. If you have that interview next Tuesday at 11 o'clock in the morning, show up at 10:30, sit in the parking lot, and review your stories. If you have a phone interview next Friday at 9 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, get out your SOAR stories, your STAR stories, start reviewing them. You're going to feel so much more confident when it comes to the interview, and your answers are going to be precise and very impactful. So I hope you found this video informative and useful, and if so, make sure that you subscribe to this channel as I do upload new career tips and strategies every Tuesday. Thank you for stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye-bye.